A lot can be said about what the Chicago Bulls plans are and the things that the Bulls front office, including head coach Billy Donovan, said during that interview with 670 to score. But the question I gotta ask, with all things considered and said, are the Bulls stuck in a weird spot? And y'all know we gotta continue to talk about Derrick Rose. Is he one of the biggest what ifs in NBA history? Hey, y'all know we gonna talk about it and break it all down. But you gotta hear the music first.
Cognac, gang.
Shy Bulls podcast with the Cognac Boys. I'm Cognac Boy Bobby, and I'm holding it down for today's daily episode. If you're tuned in with me today, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we already know the Chicago Bulls, they came out and we had comments coming from all members, included a part of the squad, pretty much saying that the Chicago Bulls want to win every single game. Now, we know that those statements right there does not rub right with the Chicago Bulls fans who say, hey, we should be tanking for Coop. Tank for Coop. The Chicago Bulls said they got other plans. And then when we talk about what the plans are when you align with winning every game, what is the plan for Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic? That's why it's kind of weird on what the Chicago Bulls are doing and where they are currently headed. When you talk about Zach LaVine, you look at Zach LaVine. This is a player that the Chicago Bulls wanted to trade away. We already know that the Chicago Bulls front office were trying to initiate some trade talks or trying to find a deal that they felt was best suited for them and what Zach LaVine was worth. And it comes to find out, no deal came across the table good enough to say, hey, we're going to trade away Zach LaVine. And when you talk about Nikola Vucevic, it's now reports coming out that people believe that Nikola Vucevic will be moved before Zach LaVine. So I'm asking the Chicago Bulls, what is the plan for both of these guys? Is the plan to have Zach LaVine a part of this thing? Or is this kind of like a wait and see type situation with Zach LaVine? Do you want to see if he's going to come in and buy in and be able to be healthy and provide for the Chicago Bulls young core? Do you want to see if Zach LaVine can be a future piece for the Chicago Bulls? You still have money invested in this player. You still have expectations for this player. How long do you want Zach LaVine to remain in a Bulls uniform? Is this something for the short term? Maybe just for this season, and then you will look to try to move him? Or is this something or a trial, you know what I'm saying, a trial type of situation where you're going to say, hey, we're going to give him about 30 games and then see what we can go from there, see and go to the table and see if Zach LaVine wants to be a part of this. You know what I'm saying? Depending on how well the Bulls playing or how bad the Bulls are playing. You know what I'm saying? And do they go back to Zach LaVine or do they just sit on the sideline and wait and say to hell with it? You know what I mean? Does the win total matters? Does the loss count matters? Does the play style matter? What's going to be the evaluation process to say, hey, we're going to ride this thing out with Nikola Vucevic on the squad, or we're going to ride this thing out with Zach LaVine on the squad? That's why it's really a bit, it's kind of like a weird situation, because as of right now, we looking at things and we're like, okay, we understand Zach LaVine, or at least for me, I at least understand that Zach LaVine could be an intricate part of the squad. But you got to figure out where we're going from here. You know what I'm saying? We're told that we're going to embrace this youth movement. Zach LaVine, is he a part of the plans of the youth movement? Do you feel like the Chicago Bulls can continue to push forward with Zach LaVine a part of this squad moving forward past this year? They got to figure that thing out. They gotta figure that thing out, because when we talk about the youth movement, you're looking at the guys like Kobe, Ayo, and all the other guys that's on the squad. How well can Zach LaVine be? How effective can Zach LaVine be for the growth of these young guys? Zach LaVine pretty much came out and said, look, I ain't gonna get in the way of the young guys. Yeah, but the thing is, you could say one thing but then do another. So I'm anxious to see how that's all gonna plan out. And I understand that the Chicago want to build some type of culture, hence why they're not coming out and saying, we're going to lose as many games as we want. And I don't think you're necessarily going to come to the podium and say that. And you can absolutely have another agenda that's hidden below the surface that you don't want Bulls fans to cling on to and be like, hey, and have our hands up in the air like, what are we doing? But I will agree that building the culture is an essential part if the Bulls want to be successful moving forward. We know this upcoming season, the Chicago Bulls, we don't expect them to do many things. We don't expect them to do nothing at all, if we're being quite frank with you. I understand that there is a belief that the Chicago Bulls could be fighting for a play-in spot. I'm of that belief, but is this a long shot for the Chicago Bulls to make the playoffs? If we keeping it real, it's a long shot for the Chicago Bulls to make the playoffs. So we got to see how they can work this whole thing out. And then, like, winning games, would that be the ultimate goal for the Chicago Bulls? Because Billy Donovan is coming out saying we're not just going to play guys just to play them. Hence why he's potentially thinking about sending Montes Buzelis to the G League. So that's where it gets weird, and that's where it gets confusing for me, because yes, you want to win more games, but you also want to embrace the youth movement. But if you want to win games and embrace the youth movement, you don't have the idea of just sending guys down to the G League. I believe that the most that you can get out of your young players is by playing them against other great NBA talents. And I say that because we've seen Billy Donovan and the Chicago Bulls history with sending guys to the G League. I mean, some things have panned out. You show them love for the step forward of Dalen Terry in the G League, but you got to credit that to a lot of the experience he received the second half this past season, and then you also have to contribute that into his offseason workout. So I would and I would challenge the Chicago Bulls on even the idea of thinking about sending Montes Buzelis down to the G League, simply because, like, we've been here before. And I'm not saying that the G League can't be helpful. I just feel like the NBA basketball, in the way that it is, can be a bit more beneficial. Now, though I don't like it, I will agree. If Montes Buzelis is not getting a lot of minutes to keep him or keep his development moving forward, you might consider sending him down to the G League. It doesn't is not what everybody will want. It's not what a lot of things that make sense, but to counter that part to where we say we don't want Montes Buzelis down at the G League, to counter that, we'll say, hey, this man ain't even been playing these last few games. Let's go ahead and get him down there for a game or two, just so he can, stay in the field of playing some type of organized basketball. I can understand it in that regard. So, and then what also we got to continue to look at is the further development of the young guys. We're talking about Julian Phillips. We're talking about Dalen Terry, who's going to be battling for minutes. We're talking about Montes, who we believe, or at least for me, I'm not going to speak on speak for others. I believe he has a mentality that he wants to be the best player on the squad. He's going to have to prove that, obviously. But I believe his mentality is different from a lot of hoopers. You know what I'm saying? A lot of hoopers don't come in and say, I'm the best player in the draft. The first round pick who was selected don't want to see me. That's a different type of mentality that you don't see quite often especially from young players that have came through the door for the Chicago Bulls. You get guys that are a little more reserved, a little more humble, a little more stoic. Montes Buzelis seems like he's a little bit more confident, maybe to the point to where it looks or appeals to be arrogance. And sometimes you need that for some of those star players. You got to have some type of confidence that kind of leads to some type of arrogance. And it might not always rub the certain people the right way. But that's what the Bulls will have to figure out. After this season, how is it going to look? You know what I mean? And the whole thing that's really throwing it off is Zach LaVine. How important will he be to the development of these young players? Will be the question. What type of role is Zach LaVine going to play? We know that Montes Buzelis is coming into the field of things. And I will ask this question. Is Zach LaVine going to play the Karl Anthony Towns role? What I mean by that is, we know we got Montes Buzelis. if Montes Buzelis certainly begins to rise up and you start to see flashes of different things after so many games, and you start to be like, damn, we could probably build around this guy. You know what I'm saying? Or we could probably place different type of pieces around this guy to help elevate the squad, but also still keep the veteran or the highest paid guy on the squad, the Zach Levine or the Carl Anthony Towns, could potentially stick around a little bit longer to take that back seat for a guy who steps up and wants to be that player. Is that Montes? Is that Josh Giddey? Is that Kobe White? That's something that the Chicago Bulls got to figure out. That's something that they got to figure out. But all in all, it's a weird spot to be in for the Chicago Bulls. They got a lot of things that they got to figure out, and I necessarily don't think they're going to figure it out within the first few weeks of the season. I think this is going to be something that we got to take our time with. Our front office has shown that they will be patient when it comes to decision making, and they will be more patient than us fans. Hence, they should be. They are the ones that get paid for that. We don't. You know what I'm saying? So it's still a little weird for me. But before we go, want to talk about Derrick Rose. Y'all know how we felt. I know how I felt. I wore my whole Derrick Rose jersey the whole day. We took it off today, but guess what? I'm wearing it in spiritual. I'm wearing the jersey in spiritual. But the question I ask you all, just to have a little fun, is Derrick Rose the biggest what if in NBA history? Is he? We talk about guys who came from Chicago and people we thought was going to be absolutely decent coming out of Chicago, and Jabari Parker with his injuries. We talking about some other NBA greats. You talking about Greg Oden. How do we look at his situation? Guy that came in same year as Kevin Durant, had a lot of things to say up in college, and it necessarily didn't translate to the NBA, not because he wasn't capable. It was simply because injuries kept hitting him with haymakers and knocking them down. That's one. Brandon Roy. Is he one of those guys that come in and you say, damn, this is one of the biggest what ifs? Man, excuse me. Brandon Roy was one of them hoopers. One of them hoopers. And he gave the Portland Trailblazers everything that he had. And that's something you can't turn your eye at. What about Grant Hill? We know how talented that guy was. I know some of the older cats I spoke to say he was the next great thing. It was supposed to be Mike and then Grant Hill and then LeBron. But injuries again, they play a role in these sports, man. And sometimes the guys that come in and do all things through high school, through college, sometimes once they hit that pro league, things change, the body change, and it just breaks down at unexpected moments. So is Derrick Rose the biggest what if? When you talk about a young guy that came in within his first 3 years, won MVP, became an all-star, and went through a couple battles in the Eastern Conference with Keith Bogans as his number 2, Luol Deng and Joakim Noah. These guys were in the Eastern Conference Finals. Derrick Rose MVP year. And how young he was. A lot of people say Derrick Rose was in his prime. He ain't even hit it yet. He ain't even get a chance to hit his prime. So Derrick Rose was doing all this before the prime. He ain't even hit it yet. If we being honest, Derrick Rose never got the opportunity to see his prime after all the accolades that he accumulated in such a short time. That's why we asked the question, is Derrick Rose the biggest what if in NBA history? I don't know. Y'all let me know down below. I think that's an interesting one. We could definitely argue that, especially when being a homer. I wanted the championships. I wanted to see him compete. Would DeRozan, no, excuse me. The question is would Derrick Rose, would have Derrick Rose been in the same situation as a DeMar DeRozan? And what I mean by that is you keep getting these great teams, but you can't get past LeBron. I guess we will never know. We know the few times that he did play LeBron, he couldn't get past him. There was a time, I believe, in 2013-14 season, or the 14-15 season. It was one of his last few seasons here that the Chicago Bulls and Derrick Rose and Jimmy Butler and those boys, they went against Cleveland. LeBron, in game 3, Derrick Rose hits the game winner. In game 4, LeBron hits the game winner. Kudos. I remember the day vividly when LeBron hit the jumper. I had to go to work. I was working at McDonald's. We were sad up in there. So it is one of the biggest what ifs. I'm not gonna go out on a limb and say it is the biggest what ifs, but I will say it's definitely one of the biggest what ifs when you talk about Derrick Rose, because how much he accomplished in such a short time. And then we look at some of the evidence or some of the things that happened. You'd be like, damn, would he have ever made it past LeBron with Coach Tom Thibodeau? I guess we'll never know. We can insinuate a lot of things, but in reality, we will never know. But that is it for me today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank y'all so much for tuning in to another episode. Before you get up out of here, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. Thank y'all so much. Always see red. And you already know, I'm going to catch y'all on that next one.
Cognac. Gang.